So let's talk about pre-spawn ways to catch bluegill eaters. This is something that is not as common all across the country because there are techniques that will catch more and bigger fish, whether it be crawfish eaters or gizzard shad or threadfin or herring. When it comes to areas that do not have populations of shad, the entire dietary makeup of a bass is very often in the sunfish family. They don't have any other forage, so that's all they live off of. And you'll actually see this a lot in natural lakes and lakes in Florida. But the areas you really want to key in on in the pre-spawn and shallow natural lakes are protected areas that get a lot of sun. I love fishing southern facing, out of the wind reed lines with a frog and a swim jig in cold weather conditions in Florida and natural lakes. It will get you some gigantic pre-spawn fish. I've caught some of my biggest fish in Florida pre-spawn targeting bluegill. Another one we're going to talk about is how I did it. In protected pad fields, I'm also going to mix in emergent hydrilla with that, is one, because you'll find them together. When the hydrilla first starts growing, it attracts a lot of heat. Those bluegill will slam into it to stay warm in cold weather conditions. When you can find that and pad fields that are protected from the wind, it can be some of the best bass fishing you'll have all year. And when you find that grass reaching the surface, I actually was lucky enough to catch almost a 12-pounder on a fighting frog in Kissimmee, in mats, in pads in January. And I actually caught her with my GoPro running. It's the largest fish I've ever caught. And it's actually caught doing exactly what we're talking about today. And all right, now this is the most important one when it comes to paying attention to what's going on and when they're spawning. Because after the pre-spawn's fired up and they're done feeding, most of these fish are no longer actually eating brim. They're defending against brim during the spawn. So in doing this, you can get a lot of short strikes, you can get a lot of defensive bites. So at this point, you really want to slow down. And let's say you get a bite on a frog and she didn't eat it, or you got a bite swimming a jig and your line went slack and you didn't catch that fish, and that's when it's important to pick up a different bait. Pick up the fighting frog, pick up your creature bait, and go back and pick those areas apart, because that will catch those fish that we're guarding. So I blind bed fish a lot with bluegill baits, and just pay attention to your area of what spawning habitat you have in your fishery. But one of the big things when it comes to frogging these areas that's very overlooked, a lot of people think spawning fish, you need to slow down and work very slow trying to get those bites. And I was actually discussing with Justin a minute ago about this same scenario. Some of those times you're throwing a popping frog down a spawning area and you may get a swirl or two, but you can't catch those fish. That's where I'll mix up a different frog. Sometimes it's a pointy nose, sometimes it's one of the more hybrid frogs like a booyah, the popping pad crasher, one that I can actually work 2 or 3 times faster than a popping frog, and you'll get those defensive bites from the females that you would have just got a swirl from before. By moving it faster through their area, it's kind of against what you would normally think would trigger a strike, but by speeding up with a frog through those areas, you can actually generate some strikes that you would have just gotten a swirl or a nosing at the bait by not speeding it up. All right, post-spawn. This is the most important time of the year for targeting bluegill. This is where 90% of what I do in the summertime on any body of water, I'm trying to find the biggest fish in the lake feeding on bluegill. They're more reliable, they're shallow, and with these techniques, it's what I'm most known for, and it's what I try to do, replicate it all across the country.
And the information Bass University provides isn't your basic run-of-the-mill fishing video. This is specific information from A to Z to help you learn, get to the water, and become a better angler quickly.